Hi friends, Rachel Apolosa here with Talking with Famous People. And today's subject is going to be about relationship communication. Before host Eric and I were talking about, when we were having a discussion about the 4 different types of communication styles in romantic relationships. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, specifically, we were talking about really it's 4 ways of critiquing because communication is not really a matter of concern if there's not some sort of potentially conflictatory matter that's going to arise.
Mm-hmm.
So I was saying there's 4 kinds of critique. One is critiquing behavior, one is critiquing ontology or the person, one is critiquing the relationship, and one is about failed expectations, failure to meet expectations. So maybe let's talk about that one first. This is a pretty common one. It seems to be more common with women about small stuff and men about big stuff, or what men think of big stuff, I guess. It's like you didn't open the door for me. You went through fast food and you didn't get me anything. You never remember to ask me about my day when I come home. Like things that you. The whole notion of I want you to already know what I want. I don't want to have to tell you. That's a very expectation kind of a thing. In that instance, you're critiquing the person not because they did something to you or did something bad or are behaving badly or something in general or anything like that, but rather because you have an expectation that they do something extra, like some affirmative duty in the relationship that you expect them to meet, and if they fail to meet it, then you're upset. Now, the thing about expectation meeting like that is some of it's legit, some of it's not. It really depends on the two people and whether they are down with that agreement. If Rachel told me it was hugely important to her that I hold the door open for her every time we go someplace, I would certainly make an effort because it's a small enough sacrifice on my part. It's like the real sacrifice is simply I have to remember that. It may take me a little while to always do it, but as soon as I get it as a habit, I will always do it if it's important to her. In that instance, then if I fail to meet that expectation, knowing it's important to her, then I'd say, "Oh, my bad. I'm sorry I didn't hold the door for you. I know that's important to you." That's a reasonable expectation to expect me to meet if it were important to her, and one that might be fair to critique if I fail to meet it in that kind of context. But by and large, unvoiced expectations that somebody doesn't meet, complaining about that is probably a recipe for trouble because you didn't say to them, "Can you please get me a meow?" and then they didn't do it. You just expected them to get you a meow, and sort of it's placing a demand on their thinking when you're not around or talking about anything. They're saying like, you should be paying attention to me even when we're separate, even when you're doing your own thing. You should be prioritizing my interests over whatever it is you're doing at the time,
Mm.
and that's not fair, not reasonable.
Um, what do you what where do these expectations come from?
Uh, I'm not. I'm not really. They come from a variety of. They come from your particular experience, and also what you see about the world.
Mm.
So, as an NI user, you're not likely to assume that just because previous relationship partners did X wrong, that I'm necessarily going to do X wrong. Because you're not consumed by this notion that your experience is the best way to predict the future.
Mm.
But for an SI user, they have a lot of expectations. A lot of them may be negative coming into a relationship. And the problem that people have is there's an inherent discomfort when our expectations deviate from reality. Even if we have negative expectations and it's a positive reality, it causes us some kind of ontological discomfort. We want our expectations to be met as we expect them to be met. And so, basically, people, it's important to have positive expectations as a consequence. Because if you have negative expectations and you get positive results, you're still unhappy.
Yes. So what was the second?
So the second one is critiquing behavior. I consider this a legitimate form of critique, but one that can be abused for sure. Legitimate form of critique meaning if, for example, I do something either because of carelessness or because I was mad or because whatever that's not acceptable. Like, let's say I am really mad and I say to Rachel, just shut up, you bitch. Something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then she would be justified in critiquing my behavior. She would be justified in saying, I don't like the way you talked to me. Your behavior there was unacceptable. I don't want you to talk to me like that. I'm complaining about it. I'm criticizing you. You are subject here to criticism. There's this saying, criticism kills love, which I think is absolutely true. But it's also the case that an environment where neither party hears or accepts or responds to appropriately criticism also kills love.
Mm.
There has to be a legitimate way that you can address things that you don't like. You have to have a voice. Both parties have to have a voice, and they have to know their voice is heard and respected and treated as fairly as it could possibly be treated by the other person. So, say I did do that. You offer the behavioral critique. I should then, the proper response is for me to apologize, to admit that I was wrong in doing that, to resolve not to do it again, and to see, depending on the severity of the thing, what I might be able to do to make it up to her, That would be healthy dealing with an actual problem. So when people say communication is key, what they mean is you actually do have to talk out shit. You can't just sweep it under the rug, hope it goes away. It only festers. You have to deal with it. So that's why communication is key. Communication, you might say, is key in some sort of positive sense. Like you're not going to be in a good relationship unless you can chat with your partner a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But that's true for us. It's not true for an ISFP. They don't need to chat a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So really, when they say communication is key, what they mean is communication about difficult things is key. And in my opinion, behavioral critique's legit, but people can abuse it. Like I said, if they learn a rule that, okay, I can critique behavior, but I can't do other things, and they just want to critique, they want to do you harm, they want to get satisfaction from watching you squirm and shit like that, or it's just some habit of theirs or whatever, then they'll abuse that rule and they'll say, okay, I'm just going to make behavioral critiques all the time. If they're smart and can shape them as such, then they could possibly get away with that, like, and formally not break the rules. Which is why ultimately the thing boils down to your alignment or position on the relationship. Are you here to love me and celebrate the good things and find what is mutually satisfactory or satisfying, or are you here to play out this weird sort of scripted play of conflict that people do, where all the games they play Yabba, they play problem admiration, complainer, um, disappointment, head shake person. They play all these fucking games, and what's the purpose of it? Well, it's to avoid actually living in that moment of great risk, where you realize I really like this person, and I can't, nothing I can do to guarantee my interests. All I can do is be me, hope she likes me just as much, and hope we're on the same page. As we proceed forward in our relationship, we're both checking to make sure we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep finding that we are. That's great. But, you have to do those processes in a state of sort of fatalistic reality. Like, I cannot get Rachel to say words that will guarantee that she will never leave me. Even if she were to say those words, it wouldn't mean anything. It's a silly thing to say. I guarantee you 10 years from now, I'm going to feel this way, think this way, whatever. It's impossible. All we can really guarantee each other is that we're on the same page, that we want to be in a good, healthy relationship. Now, I suspect the reality is, after 10 years of good, healthy relationship, you're both going to be pretty fucking attached to each other. You're not going to be at all interested. You're going to be stronger, not weaker. But what doesn't strengthen it is ahead of time going, Now you make these words here so I can feel like I got something on you, which is what those words are for. It's like, um, that way, if you do leave me in 10 years, I can say, you said you wouldn't leave me in 10 years, 10 years ago. Why?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm so conditioned now to to understanding impermanence. I think something that like my generation and younger, we've been like so conditioned to prioritize like freedom that there's a lot of uncertainty, even if your feelings are or like your intuition is telling you otherwise. So sometimes like I forget my faith in like the impossible and like or seemingly impossible because I actually really do think that most things can be overcome. Um, but yeah, I think it's just like a learning curve, and our I'm a very like intuitive visual person. He's more like words and um
And we'll do another video on that.
yeah.
I want to talk about that topic
So
next,
yeah,
but
so yeah,
let's
so
do this one first, and then we'll get to that
so
one.
so but back to like the behavioral things. So it's clear that there are some people who they take a behavior and they nitpick it until almost trying to somehow make the person feel like they have to change that.
Right.
Now, what about like behaviors as deal breakers?
All right. Well, there are some behaviors deal breakers, which means you don't need to communicate with them about them anymore. Like cheating. I don't know, theft, depending on the nature of your relationship, that may or may not be possible. I tend to be like a combined finances thing, so it's not really a risk once you get settled into a relationship. It's not even an issue at that point. But cheating obviously is a deal breaker. I think there are a lot of things that I now think should be deal breakers that I didn't used to think were deal breakers. Um, I, threatening to break up with somebody as a means of leveraging, like if well, fine. If you're not willing to go along with what I'm saying here, then I guess we're not meant to be together. Like that shit, break up with them instantly. Pretty much. If they try to leverage like that, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Um, a general tendency to disrespect, I guess, is also adequate. There's no reason why you should put up with a bunch of disrespect. I put up with a shit ton of disrespect in my last relationship.
Yeah, and I think that disrespect comes in different forms for different people. Like my mom, for instance, she is a censor, and if I do not, pick up my towels like off the floor, that's like a huge disrespect for her. It's not even like I'm not even doing it on purpose, but that's like it could be a deal breaker for her if she were to be into a relationship with people who just didn't pick up after themselves.
Yeah, my dad. That's a huge thing with my dad too. Like if I leave a dish
Mm-hmm.
someplace, I'll hear about it for sure.
Yeah. So I think like there maybe then that's interesting. Maybe there's universal things. I mean, cheating. I think again that is the behavior that is definitely warrants an ending. Um, and yeah, like
Also, any kind of violence, obviously.
yeah,
And I would also say severe substance abuse or substance abuse that's a problem. If
yeah,
somebody's not hasn't yet found their sustainable intoxication habits, you should probably leave them. It
yeah.
could
It's
be
a long
forever.
road.
It could be forever or it could be soon. You have no way of knowing. You might just leave.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. So then, what is the third?
The third is ontological critique, and that's when instead of saying, "I don't like the way you left your towel on the floor," you say, "You're a sloppy slob." You're a slob. Well, just because you leave your towel on the floor doesn't mean you're a slob. And it's an inappropriate use of ni, right? It's like trying to reduce you to your negative behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
If your partner's a teammate, they should never really say things like that because they want to build up your ontology. They don't want you to believe you're a slob. If they believe you're a slob, they'd like to gently shape you into being less slobby, maybe, without you internalizing any negative narratives about yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not into like regular job and shit, and it's an issue, well, your partner shouldn't be telling you you're lazy. Okay, your partner should be saying, maybe we're not on the same page here because I want to be with somebody who's traditionally productive at a workplace, makes money, etc., and has a traditional vision for their life or whatever. Okay, that's a fine thing to say. You're lazy is not. Like, she could say in response to you're lazy, a woman could say, you don't care. You're not a caring person because you're at work all the time. Well, both those things are bullshit. So it's like you just don't make ontological critiques because what that means is you've taken something that could be addressed as a behavior, and instead of addressing it as a behavior, which assumes your partner is good and the behavior deviates from the partner's goodness, you've chosen to assume the partner's bad and provide them no solution. There's no solution to you're lazy. There's a solution to, can you put the stool back in the shower? I don't not put this, like you're saying about the towel, right? I get scolded about this every time I leave the stool out of the shower after I take a shower. I don't intentionally leave it out of there. I even usually think to myself, don't forget to put that fucking thing back in there. I don't want to hear about it later.
Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes, like, I'm getting out of the shower, the phone rings. Oh, hi, Rachel. And I walk out of the shower and, I fucking forget about it.
Mm.
So, I don't want to be told I'm sloppy. I don't want to be told I'm forgetful. I don't want to be told I'm inconsiderate or irresponsible or anything like that. I want to be told you forgot to put the thing in the shower again. That's fine. I get it. I'll conclude on my own I'm forgetful. I don't need you to tell me I'm forgetful. I already have plenty of narratives about my own negatives.
Mm-hmm.
If your partner's a teammate, they don't want to add to your burden of negative self-narratives. They want to relieve that burden. They want to affirm you. If they see you have some insecurity in you or something, they don't want to hammer that by saying, you're so feminine or something like that. Let's say you're not a particularly masculine guy. You definitely don't want to be with a chick who's telling you that. You want to be with a chick who's telling you you're plenty masculine for me or amply masculine or whatever. I was surprised the other day when this sort of thing always does surprise me these days, but like Tori said, I was saying something about masculinity and talking about myself not being especially masculine. And she's like, what are you talking about? You're super masculine. Well, that's the thing. Shit changes over time. It's like I wasn't always perceived as such. And it was not like I really changed my nature at all. I've just, I guess, become more confident. And I guess that correlates with masculinity. I don't know. But the point is, to the extent that I had any insecurities about that, I don't want my woman saying, you need to be more masculine. You're not masculine enough, or you're feminine or something. Because what's that going to do? It's just going to make it worse. I'm going to internalize it for sure.
Yeah.
You want to be somebody who cares about you enough to not make ontological critiques. So I'd say there should only be ontological affirmations. I will always tell Rachel she's gorgeous, she's precious, perfect angel, all that kind of stuff. I will never tell her you're getting a little thick or your hair's getting gray and you change that, or I won't ever tell her any shit like that because that's not actually what I feel or think at all, and because I love her, I it's like the weird things that people do to people they reportedly love, and I'm not exactly sure why it happens, but there is this sick satisfaction that people get from getting the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And that infests lots and lots of relationships.
Yeah, it's like you're. So I think sometimes like we do this as mistakes, but it does poison the person's like thoughts and feelings. Like I know for myself, if someone's, saying that like I'm fat or whatever, that I'm just kind of like, I do. I think about it, and then I'm like, oh well, he's with me, so it must be true. Like,
You
like
stop trusting the other person.
yeah,
You stop trusting
yeah,
them
you
with your
do.
feelings. You may still trust their words, but you don't trust
Right.
trust them with your feelings anymore.
Yes, yes, and that's a big thing. So, what do you think is the most damaging part of the ontological?
Ontological critiques are damaging because the person, when you're in a relationship with somebody, at least this is my experience, they have the most power to convince you of narrative to internalize.
Mm.
Um, an intimate relationship is intimate because that's the person with whom you share your most secretive parts. And if if the response to that is something not loving, either not acceptance, curiosity, compassion, embrace, or something positive like that, if it's something negative, then you either shut off emotionally or internalize that shit and become negatively impacted in an unhealthy way with that person. Like continue to seek more affirmation from them. They continue to sort of withhold it, and you get in this sort of sick cycle or something like that. Um, it just you know the first time it ever happens in a relationship when somebody goes, "You're just so lazy." You should explain this shit and say, "If you care about me, if you're a decent human being, you will not do that again because I am I am with you right now, which means I am as vulnerable to you as I can get. I'm in a relationship with you. We're having sexual intercourse. We're telling each other our secrets. We're relying on each other for love, affection, support, and all that other stuff. As my teammate, you are empowered to um, affect change in me. If I'm being a bad teammate, if I'm failing as a teammate, and you're going to critique me, then I know that okay, fuck, I fucked up. I need to do something different. I I didn't I didn't run out that fly ball. The outfielder dropped it, and I got thrown out of first base. Like I fucked up. I should have ran that out. But because I'm subject to that, I'm looking to be a good teammate. If you're gonna make critiques of me as a teammate, you should make them as something I did, something I am. You shouldn't tell me I'm bad at running, because if you do that, then I start to feel like, well, maybe this team doesn't want me anymore. Maybe I shouldn't be on this team. Maybe this team needs somebody who's faster than me. They don't need me. I may fit on another team. And then that brings us to the last of the four things, which is critiques of the relationship. The stories we tell come true. And if your partner's saying stories like, I don't know about this, I don't think this is going to work, or you're not serious, or like a bunch of shit like that, then that's the story that's going to come true. They either need to change that narrative or just go ahead and walk away now, because it will come true eventually. If your partner's telling stories on a regular basis about how the two of you don't work out very well, how you have problems, how you're never going to figure this out, how it's doomed to fail, or anything like that, just end it now. You're wasting your time. That kind of pessimism will poison a relationship unavoidably, because it raises questions like, okay, if this relationship isn't good enough and you're not giving me behavioral critiques, then I can only infer ontological critiques. There must be something wrong with me. Or I can conclude, be really wise and say, well, it's just a compatibility issue, and walk away and not internalize it. If you're like metaphysically super robust, fine. Few people are that robust metaphysically. They just understand the reality of things and walk away all actualized and fine and everything. Shit gets dirty, you know?
It does. I mean, yeah. There's a lot that goes into relationships just in general, and while you're speaking, it got me thinking about how um, when you put those doubts and like you're saying those narratives and that story, and you're telling yourself and other people those negative thoughts you have towards your relationship, it is you know toxifying the union that you have, because what you think is what you tend to believe over time, especially the more you say it. But it's interesting because your thoughts can be changed, and it's so simple, right? Like, it's actually a pretty simple thing, but I think we've been like, we can as a whole repeat these things in our mind, not even knowing sometimes, and it creates like a snowball effect. But ultimately, that those thoughts actually can be changed.
They can be. Um, a lot of times, if you're trying to work with your partner regarding their perspectives, their positions that they're voicing, you'll either find it not a problem at all or nearly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is you're asking your partner to use introverted intuition to to cascade down narratives. Like, here's the truth, therefore the narratives beneath that will change.
Mm.
But experiential knowers, like SI DOMs, the truth always serves their experience. They know from experience first, and then they link the truths to those experiences that resonate. So it's kind of like cherry picking. They only use the truth when it serves what they already know with their experience. Thus, it doesn't cascade down like that. And if you're looking to see some sort of systemic change because they understand something that they didn't understand, it's not going to work with an SI DOM. It's not going to work with SI tool either. So you just sort of eliminate that as a possible thing and just get out of that relationship at that point. You won't be able to make any progress. And that's the thing. If you're talking to your partner all the time in ways that are adversarial, challenging, that require a lot of effort on your part to communicate successfully, that are full of distrust, like your partner's going, well, where are you going with that? Or you're going, well, where are you going with that? That's not good communication. You got to trust your partner to, like, let's say you and I had a fight about the dishwasher one day, about whether or not dishwashers were good things to have in houses for some reason. We had a fight about that. And then next time I went to go talk about the dishwasher, it was a little bit later, I began a conversation the same way almost. Like, so anyway, about dishwashers. Now, an SI user, an SI DOM, will already jump to the conclusion that I'm going to start another fight about dishwashers. But an NE DOM has remembered that we had this fight about dishwashers, so he's going to intentionally start it the same way and then change directions at the end so that it says something different or that it has a different impact. Why? Because that's what ENTPs do. We undermine other people's expectations in that fashion all the time. Like, okay, she's expecting this. I'm intuiting that she's going to be expecting this. So I'm going to play with that. Really, what I'm doing is dismantling the other person's ability to predict what I'm going to say, and I do that in adversarial relationships.
Mm.
I don't do that in cooperative relationships. If you're doing that with your partner, you probably have a problem.
I mean, I think that's actually a really good way to kind of segue into something when it comes to relationships. Is that, do you believe that compatibility, you will have less of these critiques?
I mean, you and I haven't critiqued each other really at all.
No.
We had that one fight,
Yeah.
and that was almost entirely about we were both dealing with other people. I mean,
Yeah.
I cannot even. I remember you saying something questioning the permanence of the relationship and me freaking out. That's the only thing really I remember about the fight. I don't remember what even you were arguing about. What were you saying? I'm not sure about this about.
Well, I was saying that, like, I was opening up about a past relationship, and it was upsetting you. So I guess his tone sort of set me off. I literally don't remember exactly what I was even talking about. And to truth be told, I think we both handled it the way that, like, we're naturally inclined to. It doesn't mean that we can't grow from the experience, but I think our basic nature and basic instinct in dealing with those things were brought out in that. So,
Well, for me, it was also a lot of habit. I'd been in this very conflict heavy adversarial relationship for a long time. So I'm not accustomed to being able to have conversations with somebody and actually communicate successfully. I'm accustomed to every time I'm trying to do good work with my words, getting pushback, getting counter spells, getting aggression, getting adversarial response, etc. So in that moment, I went to that, and who knows where you went to. But the point is,
it was similar.
the thing is, we actually did deal with it perfectly, beautifully. Once we got past that initial sort of flushing out the old water from the pipe, right?
Yeah.
We talked about it, and we both apologized. And we hugged. We made up, and we both were accountable for our parts and things. In fact, we both then thereafter bent over backwards, saying sorry to each other a million times. Now that's a good relationship.
Yeah.
That's people who care and who really would like to not fight at all.
Yeah, I actually met this like couple who they said that they don't let each other go to bed without saying each other. They made a promise to each other that whenever they fight, they say each other, "I'm sorry" to each other, just because it's acknowledging the person and what they're feeling and going through and what they're thinking, and that they're also hurt. So, with the relationship critiques, so say you have pretty much all of them. Like, would you say that it's okay if there's like one that's missing? Or do
You're
you
saying,
ideally have to have all four?
well, relationship critiques are not necessarily bad. They usually are, but um, I mean, I'm a big believer in periodic sort of state of the relationship talks.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and that there be some areas of further growth is fine. When I'm really talking about relationship critiques, I'm saying you're you're not in the right relationship if one of you is all in and one of you is not,
Yeah.
and or if both of you are not all in, it's probably not going to last very long. And what all in means, it doesn't mean you know for sure that you're going to be with this person forever. All in means you act as if you do, to give them the benefit of the doubt that you definitely have some reservations for sure. Like you're not 100% sure, nobody can be. But instead of voicing those, you voice the opposite because you realize that you're building the relationship out of stories. What stories are we telling about it? Are we telling almost all positive stories? That's good. Anything less than almost all positive stories is bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is like